So welcome everybody to Repetitive Strain Injury YouTube. And today we're going to be talking about boxing. And you might wonder why on earth we'd be talking about boxing on a channel about repetitive strain injury, but it's a really interesting story. A couple of months ago, I was in San Francisco and I was looking for a place to work out because where I was staying didn't have enough room for me to really move. And I'm walking past this gym and I'm thinking, oh, they'll have a day rate. You know, I've worked in gyms and they always have a day rate for people who need some place to work out for the day. And most often they're very accommodating and they'll give you, you just pay your money, go in, work out, and that's it. So I walk into this gym and right away I thought, gosh, this is interesting because it was a big, huge room with pillars. And in the background, there were some people doing kickboxing. And I thought, okay. So I walked to the front desk and I meet Daniel Rodriguez-Mendez and Abby, his partner. And, we just sort of struck up a conversation. And I said, do you have a day rate? And they said, yes, but we're having a workshop. So, we don't have it right now. So I'm thinking to myself, if people who knew me could see me standing in the middle of a boxing gym, they wouldn't believe it. And I said something to that effect to Daniel. And he said, why? And I said, well, because, I specialize in hand injuries. And we got into the most fascinating conversation about boxing. And it turns out both of us are passionate about the idea of a straight wrist. So I'd like to bring Daniel in to sort of carry on with the rest of this story. So let me just give a big welcome to Daniel. And let's see, there we go.
Hi, Deborah. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited about having you on. And I just, I could have talked to you all afternoon. I really felt like, oh my God, I'm taking this guy's time. But it was really interesting. I mean, Daniel even showed me how boxers tape their hands, and he let me put on a boxing glove, which I had.
Blades.
The only thing that I regret is that I didn't take a lesson. I mean, not that I would be. I don't think you're even allowed to touch anybody until you're really trained. You'll correct me on that. But I just wanted to know the biomechanics. So that was my one regret, was that I didn't book a lesson with you, if you teach beginners. But anyway, so here we are, we're talking about this confluence, and the important thing for everyone to know is that you can't use your other pair of hands to use your computer, use your phone, box, carry your groceries, open car doors, press elevator buttons. You need these hands. They're very important. So anyway, what would you like to tell us, Daniel, about boxing and why this topic of technique is so important to you?
There are several common injuries in boxing. The most obvious are the head injuries, but today's subject are hand injuries, and that is the next highest, if not the highest, problem with boxers. It's not only the repetitive stress, but it's the repetitive impact. If you think about the impact, the average boxer who, day one walks in can throw about 100 to 150 pounds of force and pressure into a single punch. So when you think about elite athletes, many times pounds per square inch, and they're putting all that impact on the wrist, on the bones. And there are several common, injuries. The big one would be, I guess, the skier's thumb. You're probably familiar with it, where, let's see if I can get the proper angle. The bone right here breaks, and that's due to the style of the boxing glove itself. Notice how the thumb kind of sticks out. It doesn't, when we make a fist, we normally hide our thumb.
Yeah.
But the boxing glove itself kind of has you place your thumb on the outside. So a common injury, when you strike, you can bend that thumb back. And it could either be, the instability, or it could be a fracture, depending on how hard.
So it could be ligamentous, or it could be bony, fracture bone. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, the wrist strain. If you hit or throw a punch with a slight angle, and you're not prepared for it, or you didn't do enough training, your wrists aren't strong enough, that you can collapse on yourself and really, hurt your wrist. And it'll take 3 to 6 weeks, for a minor strain. But if you forego your body and you ignore the signs and you keep boxing, you can take yourself out for a few months.
I wanted to talk to you about this idea of keeping boxing or doing anything, because when I took a very extensive course in personal training, and I remember one of my teachers saying, you cannot get these athletes to stop and rest. It's just impossible. I mean, the hardest thing you can do is to restrain people, because they love, they want to go back, and if you go back before you're really ready. So do you have that issue as well? Because I don't.
Fun. You don't want to stop because it's fun, and you're in the class setting. You don't want to let your partner down, or you don't want to look weak in front of the coach. But that's not my style. So if I hear that someone, I hurt my wrist, well, don't throw with that hand at all. In fact, take the whole day. Don't do anything. I've hurt my wrist several times, so I know what it's like.
Is there a way you can not mark it, but like you could do the activity without actually making contact, just so you kind of keep in shape without dinging your hand? Is there a way to do that in boxing?
Yes, it's called shadowboxing, where you kind of have an imaginative fight. You use the mirror, check on your form without making any significant impact, and it is a standard practice to shadow box, to warm up, make sure you're ready to actually glove up and take impact. But yeah, you could just work out as shadow boxing just as is. That could be a good workout, 20-30 minutes. If that is your only goal, is to shadow box, you can stretch it out for a long length of time.
Yeah, I think I derailed you a little bit. You were talking about first the skier's thumb, and then the wrist injuries. I've also heard of boxers break.
Yes, boxing fractures and breaks, where the top of the knuckle will actually break due to the impact. And it's common amongst boxers because we're trained to turn our wrists and hit with our big knuckles. Where sometimes if you throw an improper punch, you might hit with the little knuckles and you could break your fingers that way as well. So
does the glove protect you from that break?
So that's the beauty of the boxing glove. It does protect your hands, but it allows you to throw with much more force. So with the bare hand, let's just say the average Joe can throw with 150 pounds of pressure. You put a glove on with the wraps, you're stable, you could almost double your output with proper technique. Yeah, the glove really does allow you to surpass your standard threshold for impact, which is why you do get the boxer fracture, because you're throwing with double the force, because you allow your body to hit with that great impact.
So working your way up, what about the elbows, forearms?
Oh yes, tennis elbow is now, as a coach, shoulder and elbow and wrists are really negative on us, because we're taking hits from our students all day, every day, and that's repetitive as well. So I'm constantly taking shoulder hits. So it can, you will get worn out. You do feel the strain at the end of the day as a coach, especially if you're teaching 10 students. You're taking 10 different body types of varying strengths and technique. And not only that, if they hit you improperly, I'm holding my hand like this, but if you hit me at an angle, you can twist my wrist in either direction. So it's a little dangerous as a coach. So you have to trust your students. You have to talk to your students and make sure they're not using you as a punching bag, or at least not yet. They have to learn the technique and hit properly.
You know, I briefly studied, I mean, I'm interested in martial arts, and I took a karate class years ago, and the first thing my teacher did was this whole reverence thing. You know, you don't want to hurt your opponent. So there was a lot of training and respect and respecting the art form and paying attention to the details. And I think it's really important. Probably it's important also to get someone who's kind of on your level, so that it's, first of all, fun. And secondly, so that you're able to know how to protect each other from injury.
Yeah. So I don't have my students partner with each other until they've learned the absolute basics. And not only that, I do have them switch off. So you might have someone with high experience partnered up with someone that it's their first intermediate class. And that's totally fine. It does sharpen the veteran to kind of dial it back and make sure that they're helping the newer student progress. I try to make it a community. I want to make sure that we work with each other, not against each other, and we're never throwing full force. So we learn the technique, the basics, and then you can speed it up depending on your partner and your own abilities.
So I'm such a novice, but this is really fascinating. So when you have a student, let's say somebody's walking in day one, how do you start them out? Do you use a bag or?
No, not at all. The minute one, you learn how to stand. Then you learn how to walk, because it's not intuitive. You have to be taught how to move forward, move back, and your lateral movements, your left and your right. And then in between that, you have pivots where you move either a single foot, or you move your whole body, where you utilize your hips and your shoulders. There's a lot to it. And then I'll teach you your punches step by step, one at a time, proper movement and weight distribution. A lot of coaches don't tell you, they show you how to throw the punch, but they don't tell you why. Or why do I keep my hand by my face? Why do I have my weight on the back foot versus the lead foot, depending on what punch you're throwing? I try and go in depth into the individual punches and movements, and then you string it all together to make it seamless.
That's amazing. You know, it's really, I'm so happy we're talking about this, because the whole body is involved in boxing. And by the same token, your whole body is involved in using a computer, because whether people realize it or not, they are athletes at the computer, and they don't realize they need to work out to stay in shape to do this incredibly demanding and dangerous work, you know, using the phone. So the idea of posture, I'm sort of the posture queen. I really emphasize posture, but there's also the idea of bony alignment, because anybody who works with the body knows that the power comes from your bone, kind of from the ground up. I mean, you really, if you've got, you know, your bones aligned, you've got a strong core, you're well placed, you've got so much more power to do anything than if you're kind of jello. You know, like a basketball player, if they don't have a strong core, they're going to be jiggly. You know, they can't jump. You really need that wholeness.
That's the beauty of boxing. It mixes your relaxed state and your utmost tense state. You want to be relaxed, because if you're tense the whole time, you will get fatigued. You'll lose your stamina. You won't last as long as you want. But if you learn to relax, even in the heat of the moment, you will last, you know, your stamina will last so much more. And not only that, that's when you add the tension right at the right time. And that's why they call it nights.
I love hearing this, because so many people are tense, like their veins are sticking out on their necks, and they're like hitting the keyboard with all this force. And talk about force. You can really do yourself in, especially the thumb, because this is not a natural position. And we'll get into this. Daniel and I are teaching a workshop in San Francisco. Come, you will learn how to save your hands for boxing or something else. And we'll talk about this at that workshop. But just to make a point, this thumb is the newest kid on the block in terms of evolution, and it's very powerful but delicate. It's kind of like the shoulder. You sacrifice stability for mobility, and so that unstable thumb is really at risk. And where do they have the space bar? Under the thumb, which is the worst place you could possibly put any. I mean, it's just, don't get me started. It's just not a good idea to be using the thumb at the space bar. But thousands of pounds of force are going through that delicate, important joint. And without your thumb, the hand is kind of useless. How do you open a jar?
Yeah.
And I see you nodding, Alexandra. If you want to jump in and say anything. No, she doesn't, but she knows what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And it's all about proper technique. Anyone can throw a punch as hard as they want, but if you can't survive the impact, you won't be able to throw another punch. So it's about control, technique, and knowing where your limitations are. So myself, I know how to throw with full strength, my full body. I rotate everything into it, but I don't throw so fast and so hard without proper technique. I need to make sure that when I make impact, it's nice and straight and the whole body rotates with it. And that prevents a lot of injury. And I brought wraps.
Oh,
These
show us the wraps.
Crucial. You need to make sure you protect your wrists. So you wrap this several times, and you want to make sure.
You have a knot. Wait a minute. Go back, because it looks like you tied a knot at the end, and then you put that over your thumb, right?
So this, your thumb acts as an anchor, and that way the wrap doesn't come off. So you can wrap and there's a million ways to do it. My way is right, but the point is you want to make sure that you choke up on the articulation. That way you have no deviation whatsoever.
Yeah.
When you're nice and relaxed, your wrist is still straight.
Yeah. We love straight.
Where you wrap your wrist, you wrap your knuckles, you place the glove on, and then hopefully, depending on what gloves you have more wrist stability and to prevent injuries. So that's where you start getting into price points.
And there's also a shoe.
Yes. Boxing shoes have a particular grip on the toe. The toe box all the way around. It has grip on the heel. It's so that you could utilize the floor and add more torque. If you add more torque, you use your hips, then your shoulders, that fist is going to come flying.
So I'm kind of fascinated, and this is maybe a little off topic, but how did you get into boxing? What drew you into this sport?
A friend of mine, he was a coach. His story is great. Alan Largespada, he went from 350 pounds to 180 pounds through boxing. Dear friend of mine, we've known each other since kindergarten, but he changed my life for the better. I was 26, 27 at the time. He asked me to join his gym as front desk. So here I am, pot belly, wearing a button down and a bow tie. Didn't know a thing about boxing, and here we are, 2025, running my own gym and doing a live with Deborah.
I know. It's so exciting. I mean, it's so funny because when I was telling people, I said, I'm going to be teaching at a boxing gym, and you could see everybody's ears kind of perk up, like because for regular members of my channel, I mean, boxing would be like, even the thought of it would be so painful. And, that's why I think, I'm really thinking about this a lot. I want to help people have a happy life and do what they do without injury. Now, boxing done improperly, like anything, could lead to injury. Boxing done with good technique could probably keep you in pretty good shape. I was looking at the kickboxers and they're getting really great cardio, and, you're using your whole body. Whereas at a computer keyboard, you're overstraining the upper extremity. It's just a bad plan. I mean, we're just using so much of this technology that puts us in really dangerous positions. So one of the goals of the workshop that Daniel and I are teaching is to educate people about how to use good technique at their computer so that they don't get an injury that would prevent them from doing all the wonderful things that they want to do. Surfing, playing their guitar, their piano, all of these other wonderful fitness activities, or just regular activities, carrying your groceries, carrying your child. These things are really important, and you don't realize how important until you lose the normal use of your hands. And I'm not expert about boxing, but I'm betting that RSI is worse than a boxing injury. And I mean, I'm overgeneralizing. I'm not talking about traumatic brain injury here. I'm talking about upper extremity. A fracture, bones heal eventually. Soft tissue is a whole different animal. It heals slowly. You get a nerve injury, and I mean, it's a whole cascade of events that we don't want to have. So I'm really grateful to Daniel for this opportunity to speak. And if there are any boxers out there, I hope you'll come in, because who doesn't use a computer? I mean, do any of your students not have a phone or a computer, Daniel?
Well, I'm in a very posh neighborhood, so everyone is in tech. So yes, all of my students deal with computers, phones, you name it. They're more technologically advanced than I am. And signing on to here was as far as I can get into.
Yeah, well, keep it that way. Do me a favor, stick with your sport and don't use technology. I was listening to some podcaster the other day, and this woman said, put your phone down for 10 minutes and write about how you feel or what you want. Get into this whole thing. And I was also at a writer's event last night, and one of my students actually is severely injured. She can't type anymore, and so but she's a writer, so she's doing everything in longhand. And the writers were talking about how the thought from the brain, and then it goes down into your arm, and then you're using this whole beautiful activity to write a word. And I think some students don't even learn cursive writing anymore. But
that was the last generation.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful thing, and I think it does slow you down long enough to think. And some of the things that I do, Daniel, are very slow, like Feldenkrais. You're very mindful, but Feldenkrais was a judo expert. So you can see the rolls, but he breaks them down to the most minute degree. And there's one lesson in Feldenkrais that's just amazing. I give it to my students, and I give them a little ball to kick with their foot before the lesson, and then have them kick after the lesson. And before the lesson, it's kind of like, it just goes a little bit. After the lesson, they bounce it off the wall with power and precision and aim and direction. And it's just astonishing. And it was that slow coordination of getting them to learn how to coordinate their whole body to give a decisive angled blow with I mean, they were using a lot of force either. It was just so precise. And so I have an appreciation for slowness and learning the fine points. I've also studied ballet for 100 years, and my teachers would always say, you can't do it fast unless you can do it slow. And they had you tendu until you're blue in the face. But That's how you train your body, the muscle memory and the bones and everything, so that you're able to articulate these incredibly complex steps in the air when you're floating through the air. So, your footwork. That's another thing I appreciated about our discussion was we talked about the feet and the ground forces coming up.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we've got 5 minutes. I don't, if there's anything you want to say, I know you have to go get ready for your classes and everything.
Yeah, no, this was fun. I do enjoy talking about boxing, and I felt that proper technique is really important. There's a lot of gyms out there that do not emphasize technique. I understand that when you have 20 students, it's hard to individualize, but sometimes there's no excuse for bad technique. You really have to snip it in the bud. You really have to get in there first before they develop a bad habit.
Yeah, well, I teach yoga, and I insist that people have at least one private with me or a couple before they take a group class, because I need to trust them to listen to their own body. I don't want anyone getting injured in my classes. And there's something about a private where you can really zero in and have a conversation with somebody about, this is what you need to watch out for. This is how you correct for this. And privates group class is fun because then you're with all your buddies and it's kind of like singing in a choir. But there's something to be said for private instruction and coaching that I really appreciate. You get the expert advice, the eye, somebody who's watching out, restraining you, keeping you from doing too much, throwing too hard, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and you get to go at your own pace.
Exactly.
Definitely, it's really catered to my student because I get all levels. If I get a really high caliber boxer, we'll do high caliber training and activities. But for a beginner, we stick to the absolute basics. Make sure that is dialed in.
Yeah.
And then have fun.
These are music to my ears. Well, I'm going to bring up some of these things so that people can see, if I can get this straight. Let's see. Someday I will learn this. Why aren't you showing? Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. So this is our wonderful workshop, everybody. And as you'll notice, you're going to learn all about what to do to protect yourself from repetitive strain injury, what it is, what the symptoms are, what the warning signs are, how to protect yourself at the phone, the mouse, and the computer. And we're giving away prizes. We're giving away a QOR360 chair, which is my favorite chair. It's a piece of exercise equipment in and of itself. We're giving away a Kinesis keyboard, and we're also giving away a free class from Daniel at his gym. So sign up. The event is on. You sign up through Eventbrite, and I will leave a link in the details below. And you can just sign up there. And there's also a QR code. I don't know whether that's actually working. But anyway, so Daniel, I just really want to thank you for coming. Anything else you want to add before you go?
No, come take a class. Come visit Bay Breakers Boxing in San Francisco. The first hit's free. Come get hooked.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for coming. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in February. And maybe I'll take a class from you.
Yeah, please do. We start you at the very first step.
Because nothing informs me like actually doing the movement that other people are doing, so that I can get a sense in my own body of what's going on and what we need.
Yes, don't worry. You'll be totally fine.
Okay.
You'll have a great time.
Well, thanks again, Daniel. And thank you, everybody, for coming and watching in the replay. And we hope to see you in San Francisco on February 15th.
Right on. I'm here.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.